Brilliant. I think we'll get going. So good afternoon, everyone. And for those of you that don't know me, my name is Laura Hodgkiss and I'm the event and training team leader here at Staffordshire Chamber of Commerce. And today our webinar is Let's Do Business. For those of you that don't know, this is a webinar. So it is we cannot see or hear you today, so if you want to grab a tea, coffee while you're doing it, it's not a problem at all, and we won't be able to see you at all. What you will be able to do is you will be able to communicate with us via the Q&A and the chat function, and at any point you can do that at all. So if you do need to ask questions throughout the session, we're more than happy for you to do that at any point. And Richard, I'm going to pass over to you, if that's okay.
Thank you very much indeed, Laura. Good afternoon, everybody. Hope you're all keeping well this sunshiny Friday lunchtime. I'm Richard Carty. I work with Staffordshire Chambers. I'm the mentoring manager for the programme. I'm going to give you a short presentation this afternoon on PowerPoint here. It will be short, I can promise you that. Bear with me, just bring that up. And I will introduce my colleagues, mentor Jeremy Stinson and mentee business Matt Hegarty later on. So without any further ado, see that. So the program's called Let's Do Mentoring. It's an ERDF funded programme, which means it's funded by the EU. Yes, even though we're not in it anymore, it's still funded by them for the remainder of the programme time. It's been a successful programme over the years. The Chamber actually runs for Staffordshire County itself. Basically, Staffordshire needs your business. Needs your business to grow. So we're Let's Do Mentoring at the Chamber. Like to offer this service out to all businesses in Staffordshire. So if you are a business-to-business small medium enterprise based in Staffordshire, you pretty much almost qualified. Mentors are very experienced and wide background individuals. We have about 80 to 90 mentors on the programme at the moment, varying from business owners, former business owners, or people that have expertise in certain technical areas like marketing or digital, social media, PR, HR, legal. So very wide, very diverse people and very diverse backgrounds. So the primary role of them is to provide support and guidance to business leaders and owners, really, because being in business, perhaps either on your own, working with a small business, can be quite a lonely place when you're starting out and when you're at the top of that business itself. So the mentor actually provides a relaxing, comfortable conduit for effectively helping and guiding. We're not actually coaches or consultants per se, and by building a human relationship, mentors typically will pass on some of their skills, advice and experience and how not to fall into pitfalls and traps that they've probably experienced themselves over many years. Also, the mentors wish to share their knowledge and skills and usually give something back to the community from a fulfillment point of view themselves. We'll also mention at this stage that all the mentors themselves are all volunteers. So they are genuinely in it to help other businesses and help them not make the same mistakes that they've possibly made themselves before. So they're actually a sounding board, really, which is the key phrase there, which really means that most business owners usually know the answers or usually have an idea in which direction to go. But having a mentor to sound out the ideas and to generate new solutions or create strategies is actually helping them to think the process through themselves and come to a rational conclusion and decision on the way forward. As I already mentioned, there's lots of areas which address in terms of backgrounds and disciplines. So the mentors have business structure and help with business structure and development, sales and marketing, including social media, SEO, funding and finance, HR, and I've said it before, legal, etc. So plus many more as well. So by definition, the mentor is a valuable, or mentoring is a valuable development activity. And the core of it all is a relationship between the mentor and the mentee. Part of my role is to try and discuss what the issues are within the mentee business to help identify who the most appropriate mentor, or in some cases mentors, will be. Keen on the fact that different mentors have different skill sets and we can apply them accordingly during the course of the mentoring program. So from guidance into settling into a new organisation or improving your career management, the main point of the mentoring is to focus on what is determined by the mentee themselves. Typically the mentor is not there to provide answers, but to guide the mentee to finding the right answers. The mentoring relationship can be both short and long term. So although it's only 12 hours initially, which doesn't sound like a lot of time, but when you sort of put aside an hour or two a month over a 6 to 8 month period, it usually works very well. And there's with obviously homework and studying and putting various parts of this strategies into place, a meeting every month or two is usually more than enough. So, as I said, 12 hours, fully funded support from the IDF programme by a mentor or mentors. And we're looking there to help you with support, advice and guidance and point you in the right direction. Good case studies in the guises. Obviously, find the criteria, it's SME, business to business, although we can be a little bit flexible because as long as the business is primarily business to business, be totally committed to the process because I've already said the mentors themselves are 100% voluntary. So the mentee business themselves need to be committed to the process, because if the mentor and mentee relationship doesn't feel that committed, then it probably isn't going to work at the end of the day. So I'll make that point very clearly as well. So that's me, that's the background on the programme. If you've got any questions, you can either file them away on the chat or we'll take them at the end of the webinar. And the mentoring case that we've given or brought to the table today is one of the mentors, Jeremy Simpson, Matt Hegarty. His organisation is called Playviz. So I'll hand over to you guys now. So if Jeremy, I believe you're going to go first and set the scene on the whole mentoring aspect with Matt. Over to you, and I'll go quiet for a little while.
Brilliant, thanks, and hopefully you can hear me all okay. Just a little bit by way of introduction to myself. So I ran my own business for 13 years, ran an agency for that time. And I think, in the early days, myself and my co-founder had a mentor, and that was invaluable. And to be honest, we probably wouldn't have made it through the first year without their expertise. So I think from my part, was very keen to kind of give some of that experience and opportunity back. And obviously the program's given a good kind of opportunity to do that. For the remainder of my career, I've spent most of that time in senior roles in enterprise cloud technology platform sort of space, particularly in video and webinar type space. So with particular expertise on the sort of sales and marketing side, and that was really the initial remit with Matt there. So Matt and I actually coincidentally worked together sort of 3 or 4 years ago. We ended up at the same organisation where Matt was one of our contract developers for a time, and sort of small world. And obviously we've kind of joined up through the mentoring program after that. I think, one of the things that always impressed me about Matt was, not only is a really hard worker, but he's a sort of rare combination of somebody who has really good technical skills, but is actually able to bring that to life and actually articulate those technical aspects to normal people and really help people understand the value. And in my experience, a kind of rare balance there. I think one of the other things that really impressed me about Matt's business is, he'd spotted this particular opportunity, and his product is really a solution to a problem. You know, I see so many organizations trying to sell what they want to sell rather than looking at a problem that needs solving and then providing a solution to that problem, as Matt's organization has done. So, I mean, in terms of the mentoring program, I'm relatively new to it myself. I've just been working with the program for the last kind of couple of years. Matt was mentee number 2. I think really now's a good point to hand over to Matt to talk a little about the conversations that we've had and introduce his business and the success that he's ultimately had. So over to you, Matt.
Thanks very much, Jeremy, and thank you, Richard, for the introduction. So as Jeremy said, my name is Matt Hegarty and I am the founder of PlayerViz, which is a web application helping gambling operators to protect their players from the risks of addiction. So I'll tell you a little bit about myself and my business. I'm going to explain how I got involved with the mentoring program and, of course, shed some light on how it's helped me. I've got around 15 minutes allocated, but I won't be speaking for as long as that, maybe 10. So my business has been through 2 iterations, and the mentoring program has helped me with both of them. So I started nearly 5 years ago. Prior to that, I was a full-time software developer and have been in a variety of companies. And I decided that I was going to go freelance as a software developer. So my plan was that I was going to be developing bespoke applications for companies, kind of like a consulting shop. There wasn't really that much of a plan, though. It was just a case of I was going to quit my job and see what happened, kind of jump out of the aeroplane and hope that the parachute opened okay. So that's what I did. I left my job, my full-time employment, on May the 27th, 2016. And on the Monday, I was a solo web developer, freelance. I actually got off to a decent start because through my network, I knew of another company based in Staffordshire who were looking for some bespoke software. So I went and had some meetings with them and we had a few sessions and we ironed out the exact nature of what this product was going to be like. So that was my first big win. That was my first big project that I undertook. And it went well. We built this project and it did take a while between us to get it going and get it working, but eventually it did work and it's still in use today. So my first year as a developer, I got some extra work off the back of that, was quite successful. But by the time I was a year in, I was struggling to find contracts or work that was similar to that which I'd already done. So that's when I turned to the staff's chambers and joined the mentoring program. And at that outset, I got paired up with a gentleman called Vince, who might be on the call. And Vince was exactly the type of person, exactly the type of mentor that I needed at that time, because he sat down with me and he said, very straight talking gentleman, and he said, look, where are you? Don't cut all the rubbish. Just tell me who's paying you, how much you're expecting to earn. And he got right down to the nitty gritty. And that's exactly what I needed because I'd kind of been dancing around this. And we looked into it and he said, right, you don't need me from now on. You've got to go away and you've got to figure this out. You've got to think it through and decide where you want to get to. So we had 2 sessions with Vince and then kind of I went away and rethought things. And the conclusion I got to was that instead of me trying to pitch software as a kind of selling software, consulting to companies, I was going to turn it on its head. And I was going to produce software, which I was then going to try and sell into companies. So this was going from a sort of a consulting business to a product business. So kind of flipping it around on its head. That seemed to be the best bet for me, although probably more of a challenge. Because the first question I came up against was, well, what product am I going to build and who is it going to serve? So my previous full-time employment had been at Bet365. So I knew about the gambling world and I'd also worked on some compliance projects. So I knew that there were some challenges in that area. So the way I tackled it was to go on LinkedIn, find people who were compliance managers at gambling operators and try and get them on the phone and have a chat with them. And people actually were very generous with their time. And I just tried to listen and try to understand and hear what the problems were that they were facing. And probably had about 10 or 15 of these conversations, and it started to emerge more and more that these compliance officers were worried about the trend for responsible gambling, in that the operators were becoming under increasing regulatory pressure to look after their customers. And of course, this is in the news pretty much every week now, and it was starting to become a big issue 2 or 3 years ago. So that's where I focused my attention. Cut a long story short, I built a demo, put that back in front of the same people, got positive feedback, and then went all in on kind of developing the first cut of the product. Now, as Jeremy said, at this point, we were working together, because whilst I was full-time, well, I was part-time developing this product, and I was part-time working at the company where Jeremy was working. And I think this was a happy coincidence, because Jeremy's company at that time was very much like a model of the company that I wanted to try to become. So they had a niche software product, which was a video hosting platform. They had a defined set of customers who were largely large legal firms or investment banks, and they had a kind of relatively small dev team, and it just kind of seemed to work. And it was a good little business, and I enjoyed working there greatly. And of course, got to know Jeremy while I was working there. So when my time came to the end there in September 2018, I decided I was going to go full-time on my product. I was going to give it as big a shot as I could. I think I had enough validation that there was something there. There was something that people were willing to pay for. So again, I took another leap and I went full-time on this product. And Jeremy very kindly offered at this point to be my mentor. So that's how I proceeded. Now, it was very valuable to have Jeremy as my mentor at that time, because I'd moved into a riskier phase. I was now a solo founder, solo developer, selling my product B2B to enterprise customers without really having having any experience in sales or marketing or dealing with these companies. So I really had no idea what I was up against. And Jeremy, as he explained in his introduction, had done this before numerous times, both with his own business and businesses where he served as a senior employee. So the way it kind of worked was that I would come up with a sketch or an outline of where I was at, what had been happening that month, who I'd spoken to, any leads I'd got, and I'd put that together in kind of a one-page email, send it over to Jeremy. Jeremy would have a look at this, and then we'd get together pre-COVID in a cafe over a coffee and just talk it over. So I found that it was very helpful in a number of ways. First of all, Jeremy was able to give very direct and practical advice about specific elements. So for example, if I said, okay, well, I've got to start with a contract. Where am I going to get someone to draw a contract up? What's it got to have in it? Well, Jeremy would say, okay, well, focus on these areas. Here are some examples maybe that you could draw from. This is the type of thing that you'd expect to see in a SaaS business contract. These are things you should watch out for, pitfalls that you kind of don't want in there. So example of a contract was something very specific that Jeremy came up with that we could talk over. And then at the next meeting, I could feedback what I'd done, what I'd found, and we could hone it like that. I mean, this is all stuff I would really have struggled to do on my own, if at all. I don't know how I would have done it. So we'd have specific conversations about specific things. But also, Jeremy was able to offer support in kind of more of a strategic way. So, for example, I might say, okay, well, in the last 2 months, I've spoken to X number of people. These people are interested. How are we going to develop this over the next 6 months or 12 months? And one thing that Jeremy was very keen to impress upon me early on was that it was going to take a lot longer than I thought. I kind of naively expected that it was going to suddenly magically spring into life within a couple of months. And Jeremy's warning was very clear here that no, it was going to take a lot longer. You should plan for it a year or 2 years. And he proved to be completely correct on that, because it took a year from talking to my first customer who showed an interest. It took a series of meetings, a series of demos. It took a trial period before they actually signed up and signed a contract in August of last year. So yeah, the mentoring program, and Jeremy in particular, helped me in a number of ways during this time. By September of last year, I'd got my first customer. I'd been a year in, so the product was well developed. And now it was all a case of finding the next customers, signing them up. So that was the track we were on. And again, it being a long process and trying to improve this process and trying to narrow the time that it took to talk to people and to get them to sign up. And then one other point that really helped me about Jeremy and the mentoring program was if I was really stuck, if the customer threw something at me that was a curveball, I'd not been expecting it, and this happened numerous times. I'd be on a call, everything was going swimmingly, and then suddenly at the last minute, they'd throw something into the mix which I hadn't expected, hadn't anticipated. And it kind of knocked me into a tailspin, and Jeremy was very generous with his time, and I was able to just ring him up and say, look, this has happened. What do you think? And he'd say, well, look, calm down. It probably means this. They can rightfully expect that you should do that. And then it would be just a voice of reason that would be there for these times that came up, like I said, a number of times, and could just put things in perspective and allow me to get on top of it. And of course, you realize that it's a learning curve, and that when you start, you're completely green and the curve is near vertical, and the mentor is going to help you up. It's going to help you along that curve. And then the longer you're doing it, the more you do it, you realize that, okay, I've learned more now. I understand a bit more about this and how to move forwards. I mean, it is not easy. It is doing things. Any business is hard. I think doing it on your own is even harder, is my personal view. And so any help you can get from someone who's been there and done it is completely valuable. So where we are now, the business has been running in its current form as PlayerViz for nearly 18 months now. 3 paying customers. It's a viable business going forwards and always expanding the product, always looking to improve it. And I suppose the analogy is that the plane is now off the runway, it's taken flight, and it's just got to make sure that it stays in flight. And things keep going as they have been. And hopefully look forward to having more of Jeremy's time to help me along the way. So to summarize, I can't really be more clear about how the mentoring service has been really valuable to me, both with Vince in the early days, and particularly with Jeremy in the last 18 months. I certainly would have struggled a lot without their help, and I would recommend anyone that's starting out or feels like they don't understand a particular domain to reach out and get a mentor on board and to get them to help you along the early phases. Thank you for listening, and I'd welcome any questions later. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. And I guess back to yourself, Richard.
Thank you both. Thank you, Jeremy, and thank you, Matt. It was very eloquent. I think the important point to realise as a result of all that, especially from Matt's comments there, is that the mentoring programme is just the start of the journey, and the journey can go on for that build that relationship to be sort of symbiotic, really. So I hope that's made that perfectly clear. So all done from our side. Thank you again, both of you gentlemen, and back to you, Laura.
Fantastic. Brilliant. That was really great. Thank you to both for doing that for us today. I really appreciate it. And thank you for Richard for the presentation that you did earlier. Just for the attendees now, and we are going to open it out for a quick chat or a Q&A. So if you do have any questions for Matt, Jeremy or Richard, I'm going to just give you a couple of minutes just to pop them in the chat or the Q&A function. It doesn't really matter. I'm quite happy to have it in any of the chat or the Q&A function today. I'll just give you a couple of minutes to do that. Just to remind you that we are recording today's session. So if you do want to watch it back, it will be on our website as of next week. We might not have any questions. Let's just have a look. It's not a bad thing. It means that they've. Oh, we have got one question, and this is probably more for you, Richard, than it is for anyone else. How does someone become a mentor?
In the first instance, please feel free to contact me. You can come get to the mentoring program via the email address, which I'll pop back on the screen just for clarity. Bear with me 1 second. See that? So it's mentoring@staffordshirechambers.co.uk. And my colleagues at the Chamber will pick that link up and send your details through to me, and then we can arrange to have one of these Zoom sessions that we've all got to know and love these days.
Brilliant, fantastic. Peter, I know you've got your hand up. I'm going to try and allow you to talk if you wanted to talk live. So hopefully we'll be able to hear you. Peter, can you hear us? You are on mute. If you just want to unmute yourself, we'll be able to hear your question. If not, we're happy to have it in the chat as well.
Hi, Laura.
Hi, Peter. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Just to say thank you actually for the presentation, interesting stuff. I guess question would be, sort of mentioned how long or that it was continuing afterwards. I just caught the end of Matt's, I think it was Matt's presentation. Just how do the relationships sort of continue, and what level? Apologies if it was covered earlier, I joined late. How long does their sort of mentoring relationship last, and what's supported by the Let's Do mentoring scheme?
Oh, it's a great question, to be honest, Peter. Richard?
Yes, hi there, Peter. Good afternoon. Thanks for your question. The mentoring process really is very unique and individual to each mentee and mentor. So some people will come along and may not complete 12 hours and decide that they've, at the end of their defined period of time, they've got what they needed and they're off on their way. Take the full 12 hours and become a full output for us on the programme, which is what we like to see. And usually, once they've done that, they will carry on with their mentors in some form of relationship, whether that be commercial or non-commercial, friends, colleagues, relationship. So it does take many shapes and forms, but once that 12-hour window is completed, then the team and the mentor are free to engage however they deem appropriate.
Perfect, fantastic, Richard. Thanks for asking the question, Peter. Really appreciate it. Brilliant. Let's just see if we've got any more questions. No, I think we're done for today, actually. I don't think there's any more questions. Just want to thank both Matt and Jeremy today, and of course Richard. And like I said, we will be, Peter, I know that you said you joined late, so we'll be recording of this on the website, and hopefully we'll see you all very soon in the chamber. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.